Well, good morning. It's great to be here with all these great representatives and senators. Speaker Chris Sprowls, thanks for all your hard work. We also have Representative Aaron Grawl, Senator Manny Diaz, Representative Mike Beltran, and Senator Jennifer Bradley. And I want to thank all of them for joining me today here, and then also for their hard work on these initiatives. Over the last decade, the Communist Party of China has been meticulous and deliberate in their economic infiltration across the globe. The growing presence of the Chinese Communist Party influence in domestic and international affairs is one of the most pervasive threats to American security and prosperity. The long-term goals and interests of the Chinese Communist Party are antithetical to the basic tenets of the American Republic. The Chinese Communist Party has made it a mission of their global expansion of power to steal intellectual property from our businesses, our government, and our academic institutions, all to further fuel their global objectives. We need to take action, stand firm against the Chinese Communist Party and foreign influence and interference in American research, education, and public affairs. Today, Florida will take a leading role by proposing important steps to address past, current, and future concerns of the Chinese Communist Party and other foreign influence in the governmental, economic, and academic affairs of our state. We will place strategic safeguards against foreign influence by closing loopholes, strengthening institutional vetting, and applying common sense protections for Florida schools, government entities, and more. To do that, we're starting with one of the primary targets of foreign influence, our education system. Chinese Communist Party's mass infiltration and theft of American research is well documented, resulting in numerous arrests at college campuses across the country just within the last couple of years. It's high time we tackle these issues and eliminate any tolerance of clandestine foreign influence in our schools. So first, we're going to make sure that state agencies, state universities, local governments, and public schools never use tax dollars to establish language and culture programs with foreign governments that place the interest of those governments ahead of our own interest. You may have heard of the Confucius Institutes, which were established at universities around the country. Trump administration took important and critical steps limiting the spread of these Chinese Communist Party funded institutions. Also would note we had the skirmish at Miami-Dade College about the Confucius Institute there. With our proposal today, we will ensure that no such organization was able to regain a foothold in any Florida institution of higher education. Potential risk of exposure to intellectual property theft and foreign influence is simply too great to allow them to take root in our state. Further, we will require every public institution of higher education report any gift of $50,000 or more received directly or indirectly by any foreign government or foreign person. Universities will be required to establish an international travel approval and monitoring program to add stronger vetting and needed transparency for the review of faculty, researcher, and staff academic travel. Additionally, we will put in place strict vetting and review processes for foreign applicants to important research positions. Florida has the best public higher education system in the nation, according to U.S. News and World Report, and that's proven by the cutting-edge research, innovation, and talent that resides right here in Florida. We must ensure that our research, innovation, and talent benefit Florida and benefit our country, not foreign interests like the Chinese Communist Party. That's why Florida will be a leader in bringing these issues into the sunshine with these new transparency measures. To institutions who fail to disclose or choose to conceal information required by this proposal, we are going to make sure they pay 105% of the amount of any undisclosed gift back to the state of Florida. We will authorize the Attorney General to bring action against any non-compliant institution. Just as the Chinese Communist Party and other foreign governments are interested in our higher education system, they're also targeting other public entities to influence. We will require all state agency and political subdivisions to report any gift, grant, or anything of value greater than $50,000 from foreign government or source. This will include individuals who are working as proxy for one of these countries to ensure that Florida closes any loophole for unreported financial influence of these foreign actors on our government agencies. Further, we'll require anyone seeking a grant or contract from the state for more than $100,000 to disclose any contract with, donation from, or grant received from 7 countries of concern, including China, the Republic of Cuba, the Islamic Republic of Iran, North Korea, the Russian Federation, the Syrian Arab Republic, and the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. The private entities seeking public grants or contracts in excess of $100,000 will also be required to report any contract with, donation from, or grant received from persons or entities substantially influenced by such government, having a value in excess of $50,000 from the previous 5 years. Not only is this an issue of establishing barriers to foreign influence, but also a measure of sound fiscal stewardship to ensure tax dollars don't up in the hands of the likes of Maduro, Kim Jong-un, or the Chinese Communist Party. Foreign interests not only target public institutions, but also proprietary information and trade secrets of American companies. It's essential we give Florida companies and innovators the protection they need to continue leading Florida's economic recovery. With today's proposal, we will bolster law enforcement's ability to go after corporate spies and beef up penalties for any corporate espionage that benefits a foreign government. We'll modernize Florida law to include theft from cloud technology and create a third-degree felony for a person who commits theft of a trade secret and a second-degree felony for trafficking in trade secrets. In addition, any person who commits these acts for the benefit of a foreign government, foreign agent, or foreign entity will have their offense reclassified 1 degree higher and re-ranked 1 level higher on the offense severity ranking chart, resulting in longer prison sentences. If any person is convicted of these acts, we're going to make sure they pay restitution for any theft they commit and any benefit received or expenses covered in association with the unlawful reproduction of a trade secret. Public or private, the rule of law should and will be enforced to protect Floridians from foreign influence and espionage. As society and technology evolve, so did the manner of threats we face to global and domestic security. The Chinese Communist Party and other foreign actors continue to pose very real and present threats to American research, academic, and public institutions. I think the proposals today are a great first step. I look forward to working with the legislature to be able to get this on the books. And with that, I'm happy to bring up the Speaker of the House.
Thank you, Governor, and thank you for being here today with the members of the legislature and for leading on this issue, as well as so many others. I'm pleased to join Chair Grawl from our Public Integrity and Ethics Committee, Representative Mike Beltran, and of course Senators Bradley and Diaz, who are joining us in this fight today. You know, there are nations that spurn our freedom, yet yearn for our innovation, that seek to corrupt our institutions, exploit our openness, and steal the products of American ingenuity. Foreign adversaries use our university system. They use our local governments, research institutions, and companies to intimidate, influence, and steal their way to a strategic advantage. They set up foreign propaganda missions in the United States under the guise of benign-sounding cultural agreements and twist the utopic notion of international exchange into a weapon of coercion and bribery. Their agents work under the cloak of darkness, enact their schemes, but today we work to bring sunshine and transparency to combat those shadowy tactics. Their spies will be met with justice and their deception with accountability. That sounds like an Ian Fleming novel, but in fact, here in Florida, it is very real. China is engaged in an aggressive propaganda and espionage campaign right here in the state of Florida. You can look no further than some of our most prestigious research institutions. The University of Florida, one of almost the top 5 research institutions in the United States of America. Not long ago, 4 researchers from the UF were discovered to have undisclosed, inappropriate relationships with China and with the Chinese government. One of those researchers in biomedical devices was recently indicted by a federal grand jury who worked in biomedical sciences. There was also a professor in artificial intelligence involved in an inappropriate relationship, many of whom with monetary relationships and shadow laboratories housed in the People's Republic of China. While researchers at the University of Florida were looking into those individuals, their computers were cyber attacked and crashed. You can look at Moffitt Cancer Center, one of the premier cancer research institutions in the United States, where the CEO and the vice president of research had undisclosed relationships with China, which include Chinese bank accounts, which include an employee who was housed in China who never came to the United States and had what amounts to a fictitious HR file. That money was then had to be sent back to the state of Florida as a refund. Look at the University of Central Florida, who had a researcher who was working on autonomous submarine technology. When he was confronted with his inappropriate relationship with China, he fled back to China. His research assistant was later indicted for exporting autonomous submarine parts back to China. When the Select Committee on Integrity and Research Institutions gathered about a year ago, we started peeling back this network of espionage and foreign interference in our universities and our research institutions. We found that there are no limits to the depth to which other countries, especially China, will go to steal our science and technology and use that technology to best us on the world stage. We have a duty to protect the taxpayer and safeguard, when possible, our colleges and universities, state agencies and institutions, and businesses. I think we will find that we have only just begun to scratch the surface of the depth of China's influence and gathering operations. We're fortunate to have a governor who understands what it will take, both the legislature and the executive branch, to combat the widespread and incredibly sophisticated campaign that China and other foreign nations are engaged in when it comes to undue influence and espionage. Because of the multifaceted nature of the foreign threat, we will file multiple bills this session. First, we will have the proposed committee bill out of the Public Integrity and Elections Committee by Chair Grahl, and a companion by Senator Diaz that forces disclosure of foreign donations and grants in higher education, state agencies, and local governments. Florida is known for our sunshine and transparency. No longer will foreign interests be able to hide payments through subsidiaries and front companies. Countries, most notably China, wants to exploit the openness of our academic system and accelerate their technological advancement at the U.S. taxpayer and Florida taxpayer expense. Last session, we began to strengthen transparency and disclosure of foreign influence and conflicts to protect our research integrity. This year, we are proposing increased vetting of foreign applicants for research positions and requiring monitoring of international travel related to employment in our research institutions. We're also finding that foreign nations, particularly China, have been sophisticated about the ways in which they've engaged in agreements like sister city agreements and education programs such as Confucius Institutes as both propaganda centers and ways to get their foot in the door to improperly influence people and policies and positions of influence. The committee bill will forbid government-financed agreements intended to promote the language and culture of foreign adversaries such as Syria, Iran, North Korea, China, the Maduro-backed regime in Venezuela, Cuba, and Russia. Just recently, President Biden's own pick for CIA Director, William Burns, told senators at his confirmation hearing that China's aggressive and undisguised ambition and assertiveness is the single long-term geopolitical challenge to U.S. security. We agree. The House will also consider a bill by Representative Beltran and Senator Bradley that will increase the penalties for intellectual property theft that benefit a foreign nation or a foreign agent. We will not tolerate Florida corporate espionage here in the state of Florida. The threat is real, and the challenges associated with stopping it are very real. These bills will make Florida the first in the nation to roll out our own oversight and reforms that protects our taxpayer-funded institutions from foreign interference. Perhaps it was Senator Marco Rubio who said it best just a week or so ago when he testified in Chair Grahl's committee, when he said the burden of oversight and accountability rests in our states. Florida, for that, I thank the governor, I thank our partners in the Senate for working with us to tee up this fight this session. With that, I'll turn it over to Chair Grahl, who will be running the bill out of the Public Integrity and Ethics Committee.
Thank you, and thank you, Speaker Sprowls, for the honor to serve as Chair of the Public Integrity and Elections Committee. I am proud to continue the work on this important issue facing our state. I'm also proud of the work we did on the Select Committee on Integrity of Research Institutions last session in uncovering the deception and influence of foreign governments working to steal sensitive information from our research institutions. I appreciate the opportunity to sponsor this critical piece of legislation to increase transparency in our universities and government from foreign donations and persons. Make no mistake, there are foreign governments and companies that want to steal our research and secrets and do us harm. They have developed elaborate layers of front companies and groups to hide their true intentions. Our bill will require three main things. Institutions of higher learning, public agencies, and political subdivisions will disclose all foreign gifts above $50,000. Any private entity applying for a state grant or contract will disclose whether they are working with specific countries of concern. And it will prohibit state agencies, political subdivisions, public schools, and state colleges and universities from entering agreements or accepting donations to promote the language and culture of Syria, Iran, North Korea, China, Venezuela, Cuba, and Russia. China recently infiltrated Moffitt Cancer Center to hijack research that was funded by U.S. taxpayers. It was found that China paid top Moffett officials and scientists who violated Moffett policies and federal grant guidelines by refusing to fully disclose their personal payments and bank accounts in China. Recently, a former University of Florida professor and Chinese national was indicted for lying to federal investigators looking at his non-disclosure of his China interests when he obtained $1.75 million in federal grants. The professor was secretly supported by the Chinese government and a Chinese company that he founded to profit from the stolen research. Also, 2019 U.S. Senate report found that nearly 70% of U.S. schools that received more than $250,000 from a propaganda arm of the Chinese government failed to properly report that information to the Department of Education. I too believe we are just scratching the surface of what is out there. Florida is taking bold steps to protect our institutions from countries that do us harm, and I appreciate the opportunity to be part of that fight. I would like to welcome Senator Diaz to the podium, as he will be our Senate companion, and I look forward to working with him on this important bill.
Thank you, Chair Graw, and I really look forward to working with you on this great piece of legislation. The problem of foreign theft of intellectual property and infiltration of our universities and companies is a serious and growing issue. I'm pleased to join my colleagues here today to talk about Florida's plan to stop foreign espionage, theft, and influence. Our state is under attack by foreign governments and front companies. Make no mistake about it, we have been too trusting in our attitudes towards cooperation, and they have taken advantage of us. As Chair Graw outlined, we demand more transparency for foreign donations. If an institution fails to disclose this information, they're required to pay a civil penalty of 105% of the amount of the undisclosed gift from non-state funds. It would also authorize the Attorney General or the Department of Financial Services to pursue civil action to enforce the provisions. Today's legislation exposes how countries steal taxpayer-funded research and ideas and try to influence our academic institutions. We are finding that nations are very sophisticated about using agreements with higher education institutions as propaganda centers and ways to influence our decisions. An example of that was mentioned by the governor with the Confucius Institute. Florida is putting America's adversaries on notice. Your interference and influence will not be tolerated here. And again, I look forward to working with Chair Graw on the Senate version of the bill that I'm sponsoring. And next, I'd like to bring up Representative Beltran.
Well, thank you. I first want to thank Speaker Sprouls for putting his trust in me to run this bill and to address you all on the provisions of my bill to tackle foreign theft of intellectual property and trade secrets. Here today, we're demanding accountability to protect corporate assets from foreign spying. The legislation I filed is going to do four things. First, it's going to modernize the trade secret theft crime to expedite enforcement and simplify litigation of that. Second, it's going to create a trafficking in trade secrets crime. It'll be a second-degree felony for any person who traffics or attempts to traffic in trade secrets that person knows or should have known were stolen. Third, it will increase penalties for theft or trafficking in trade secrets if the crime intends to benefit a foreign government or entity. And last, it will allow a court to provide injunctive relief to prohibit improper use of a trade secret and even require affirmative actions to protect that trade secret or require the payment of a royalty in order to compensate for that theft. We will not, in Florida, allow foreign governments to steal our intellectual property or our trade secrets or our innovation. And the exchange of intellectual property demands a bargain for exchange where we're compensated for that, not a one-way theft of trade secrets. Next, I'd like to welcome my Senate partner, Senator Bradley, to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative. Thank you, Governor DeSantis, and to my fellow legislators for taking the lead on this very important issue. The bill that Representative Beltran sponsored in the House and that I'm running in the Senate is very important. It takes direct aim at foreign governments and companies that would steal secrets from our businesses. China and countries like them are actively trying to steal and replicate American intellectual property through corporate espionage. Now, if they steal or improperly use a trade secret, a court could issue an injunction to stop its use or require payment of a royalty for future use of that trade secret. The theft of trade secrets and intellectual property must stop, and these laws will place Florida in a position to end it. For too long, our adversaries have been stealing corporate research and trade secrets, and this legislation will provide real security and action towards addressing the problem. I'm honored to sponsor this bill in the Senate. I'd like to thank my colleagues in both chambers for supporting this landmark legislation in Florida.
Well, thanks so much. This weekend, a long wait, we received the emergency use authorization for the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which, as I think most people know at this point, is a single dose. You don't have to come back for the booster, at least not within a short period of time. And it can be stored in a normal refrigerator. It doesn't require a -70. It doesn't even require any type of freezing. So it's much more versatile, and I think it's going to be a really value added. We don't know for sure whether we will definitely get it this week, but we think we probably will. We don't know exactly how much, but tentatively, the numbers that we're looking at for Johnson & Johnson shipment to Florida this week is 175,000 doses. Now, that has not been confirmed yet, but we hope it will be very, very soon. And I think Floridians should understand that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine in the clinical trials was shown to be incredibly effective. This is a really good vaccine. It's 100% effective against death and hospitalization. And so, particularly after the 28-day period with the hospitalization. So if you're taking Moderna, you're going to need the booster at 28 days as well, and then obviously that takes some time. So there's an argument that J&J may even be better for some people, but at a minimum, what I would say is if you have an opportunity to take the J&J, take the J&J. This has been very good. The efficacy that you see the difference, 95% for Pfizer, Moderna. For the U.S., it was in the 70s. They get the 67% number because they included South Africa and some of the other trials in it, which is fine. But that difference in efficacy was primarily about mild infections. And so what J&J's clinical trials showed is that it prevents death, serious hospitalization. It reduces infections, the chance of you getting infected by between 65 and 75%, depending on where the trial took place. But then if you do get infected with it, it reduces it from a potential for severe illness to basically a common cold type situation or a common flu. So that's a huge, huge plus. That will absolutely save lives. It will reduce hospital admissions. And so we're very supportive of that. Because we think we're going to get J&J this week, and because we are starting to see higher allocations of the Pfizer, we're also going to see these federal sites open up in 4 different parts of our state this week. I'll be signing an executive order later today to expand vaccine eligibility to all sworn law enforcement officers age 50 and above, all firefighters age 50 and above, and all K through 12 school personnel age 50 and above. And if you look at those numbers, the law enforcement and fire, some of them already got it because we focused on first responders. You're talking about 20,000, 25,000 people maybe. And then with the schools, we probably could do all of that 50 up, K-12 personnel and police fire with just our J&J shipment. And so we're going to continue, obviously, to put seniors first. We're making huge progress on that. We've done millions of seniors have been vaccinated. Some of the counties are doing an incredible job. I put out earlier today, but it bears repeating, St. John's County has done 78% of its seniors at least one shot. Here in Leon, great job, 73% of seniors have gotten at least one shot. Alachua, 67%, close by next door in Gadsden County, 65%. And then some of our major counties that have 1 million or more people, Palm Beach is over 60% of all seniors in a massive county. 25% of the seniors are 65 and up of their population. Duval and Broward are going to hit 60%, very close. Of course, Duval's about 1 million people. Broward's about 2 million people. So we feel really excited about that. Obviously, last week was a little bit of a lull, just given that the Moderna got delayed because of the winter storms. That Moderna's now in, and you're starting to see, I think you're going to see some pretty good numbers over the next many days. And I think one indicator of the fact that we're making a lot of progress is this morning when people, if you went on to log on to make an appointment at one of the Publix pharmacies, it took a lot longer to fill up tens of thousands of slots than it did 2 or 3 weeks ago. And so I think that that means we're reaching critical mass. Obviously, we have more to do, but I know there's been some folks who've been frustrated because it's like if you don't get on right that second, man, these things just go. They're going to be, their window, Publix, going to be open Wednesday morning, Friday morning again at 7 a.m. People are having a little bit better luck with that because I just think the demand has softened. And then if you look with all the expansions of all these other pharmacies, we were down in Dade County last week with all these CVS. It's going to be over 60 CVSs and Navarro pharmacies in Dade County doing 100 shots a day. And in fact, Dade is now basically 50% of the seniors in Dade have had a vaccine. And I think you're going to see those go because of the retail footprint. So we think that there's going to be more opportunities for folks. And I understand it was when we first rolled out these appointments, I mean, it's like it was crushing. You'd have people, Publix in the Panhandle would have people from South Florida would drive up if they got an appointment. They were in such demand. So if you haven't been able to do it, give it a shot now. I think it is getting a little bit easier. And I think every day that goes by as new seniors get shots, I think it's going to be the same thing. But J&J is value added. If you have an option, if maybe you have your heart set on Pfizer, if someone offers you J&J, my recommendation would be to take the J&J because it's an effective vaccine. We do believe that J&J is perfect for law enforcement agencies, other workforces, because you don't have to worry about coming back and scheduling second appointments. You get everyone in with one shot, and then you can kind of move on to the next set of folks to vaccinate. So hopefully we will get that confirmed that we are going to receive J&J. We think we will, and we think it will be that 175,000. And if it is, we're going to obviously work to make sure that that gets put into arms. The other thing I think I have to comment on is this bill in Washington, D.C., the $1.9 trillion bill. And I think a lot's been put out about how so much of that has nothing to do with COVID. I think in some respects it's kind of Washington at its worst, yet again, by using this thing as a Christmas tree. But I want to focus on one part of it, and that is the money that they're sending to state and local governments. Now, typically when you do something like that, you look at percentage of the population, you divvy it up, and then you send it. So Florida, 6.5% of the population, we would get 6.5% of what you're going to do. And look, if you want to send it, don't send it, that's fine. But if you're going to send it, it should be fair. And we shouldn't be penalizing states for doing a good job. But that is exactly what this bill does. Instead of using the share of the population, they are using the number of unemployed in a state, which means states like Florida that have lower unemployment are getting penalized. States like New York and California who have higher unemployment are benefiting. They're getting a windfall of $2, $3, $4 billion. That is completely unfair. How someone in Florida would vote to penalize the state of Florida and send that money to New York and New Jersey and Illinois and California, I have no idea why you would want to do that. But as it stands right now, we would get the state of Florida $1.2 billion less than we would if they just did a straight share of the population, whereas states like New York, New Jersey, Illinois and California and Pennsylvania would get more than their share of the population. And it probably, if they keep this formula, it will probably be even worse for Florida because we firmly expect that our 6.1% unemployment rate from December is going to be revised further down. And so that will hurt us in terms of getting relief from this bill. And again, if you don't want to send anything to states, we've made decisions. We'll be able to do what we need to do. We'll figure it out. But to penalize the states that have done better makes no sense. And so you have the New Yorks, the New Jerseys, the Pennsylvanias, Illinois, all of them higher per capita COVID mortality than the state of Florida, even though our population is much older than all those states. And yet they also have much higher unemployment. So we're putting people to work. People are investing in Florida, one of the few places in the country where people are actually starting new ventures in. And obviously there's been an incredible migration There's been a lot of home sales, a lot of new home starts here in the state of Florida. I saw something on the news this morning of the 10 cities that are the top destinations for people to retire. 7 out of the 10 are in the state of Florida. If you look at where all the most new starts are, places like the Villages, far and away #1, but other communities as well. So I hope that the Senate, U.S. Senate, will look at that and see how fundamentally unfair that is to penalize a state like Florida for having better outcomes. You should do it based on population and let the chips fall where they may. Don't reward the states that had less success in saving their economies and putting people back to work. I'm going to see all you guys tomorrow, and we'll have a nice chat after I give this speech. So if you guys want to talk to the representatives, they're here for you. Thanks.
Mr. Speaker, would like to hear you talk about unemployment at some point in time.